Welcome back to my series of videos on how to make a charcuterie board. So I've gone ahead and made the mold. If you haven't seen the video on that yet, please refer to part 1. There's a video on how to put this thing together, screw it together, and assemble it so that it's epoxy tight. You'll notice a mess under here because I was doing some other projects which we'll talk about in later videos. But anyway, so my board fits snugly in place, and then the next step is going to be to clamp it into my mold, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to want to level everything up so that when I pour it, everything sits nice and even. If you have a nice straight floor in your house, you might not have to worry about that. But my home here in Rhode Island, this floor is probably 2 or 3 inches out of level from one side to the other. So I have to make sure everything's nice and straight first. So we're going to just get started on that, and we'll see how it goes. One other thing I forgot to mention is before we get this ready for the pour, I went ahead and sanded both sides, cleaned it up, picked which side I liked better. This is going to be my top, and I did mix up a little bit of epoxy to seal the edges. We are back at it again, and as you can see, or if you're listening, I will explain it to you. I have my board clamped into the mold, pretty much ready for the pour. Like I mentioned before, my floor is really at a level, so I went ahead and made myself some shims out of some scrap wood and went around and leveled the mold up as best as I could. The way that I'm doing this, you want to have a nice level mold. I'm pretty much going to try to pour exactly the amount of epoxy that I need, maybe a little bit more. So anything out of level will kind of mess that up. So I've got it fairly leveled with my extra shims, and we are ready for the next step. I want to repeat, I sealed the edges with some epoxy. I also gave them a little light sanding with a 150 grit, anything 150, 180, 220. That's pretty good to get the epoxy to stick on any existing epoxy, in my opinion. So this will be the epoxy I'm using, is ZD Spoxy. I got it on Amazon. I think it was $80 or $90 a gallon kit. I've never used it before. It was supposed to be a casting epoxy, but when I read the directions here, I realized that it says do not pour any deeper than 3/8 of an inch, basically, somewhere in here. So that might be an issue because we're pouring about 3/4 of an inch. So I have a heat gun. I'll be able to monitor the temperature of the epoxy, and if it gets too hot, then we will have to abort the mission and get this thing outside as soon as possible, because I'm not really trying to burn my house down. That's another thing. If you're not comfortable with doing this in your house, maybe do it out in your shop if you want. I do have a fire extinguisher handy. I am not trying to use it, but it is there in case I need it. But I've done this a few times, and really the heat is what you want for that exothermic reaction. And in the exothermic reaction, as you can see here, it sort of gives that lava-like look. So I have not yet picked my colors. I'm about to do that now. The pigment I'm going to be using is Black Diamond pigment. It's a nice deep full color. The only thing I'm going to do different, other than maybe different colors, is in this board I used a diamond flake, some kind of glitter diamond thing. I don't think I'm going to do that again. It gets everywhere. It makes a mess. So the next step is mix up the epoxy, pick my colors, mix the epoxy, and then do the pour. And we'll videotape that, and I'll take you each step of the way through the process. Uh, One thing I may have forgotten to mention is, I have the board pretty solidly clamped in here. You want to make sure you have it clamped in your mold fairly well, not overdone, but enough so that the thing doesn't float away. And that also keeps the epoxy from seeping on the inside. I've never really done a mold much bigger than this, but I imagine in the bigger ones, you would probably want to seal something along the bottom so that you don't lose a lot of epoxy underneath. But as I keep doing this, eventually we're going to do a bigger one, so you'll get to see that. So stick around for the next step. Thanks for watching. I think I'm going to use these two colors, or maybe these two colors. I'll make a last minute decision. Basically, they'll get mixed together in a swirl. Maybe I'll try to do 3 colors. Maybe that's too much. Maybe I'm setting myself up for disaster. But I feel like doing something different, so who knows. First thing I'm going to do is mix up the epoxy in a couple of these guys, and then start mixing up, divvying up my colors, and then we'll do the pour. Alright, I'm not sure how well this shows up, and maybe it doesn't even. So, if you go to the Total Boat website, this is not that epoxy, but there's an epoxy calculator on there, and you put in the length, width, and thickness, and it will tell you how much epoxy you need. You might not be able to see that, but it's telling me I need about 16.6 ounces. So I do want a little bit of extra just in case I need it. So I'll probably mix up about 18 ounces. So as per the instructions, when you pour this stuff, you use 2 equal parts. Mixing it, I'm going to mix it with a mixer, and then we'll divvy up the colors. The other thing about when you're measuring it off, you want to make sure you're on a nice level surface so your marks are correct. I don't know how finicky this epoxy is. Some epoxies give you a lot of room for error. Others, if the mixture's off just a tiny bit, you kind of run into trouble. So I try to just stay as exact as I can. Some people say scrape the bucket, others say don't. As you can see, I'm along the lines of scrape the bucket. I just mixed it for about 8 minutes, so should be fine. Fine being the operative word. A good way to test it is to let that sit and see how well it dries. Alright, this epoxy's starting to act a little weird, so I don't think it's going to give me as much time as it says it's going to. I'm going to just do 2 colors, because I think we're in a race against the clock now. But we'll see, that could always change. This stuff is pretty deep and rich. Makes those nice swirly colors already. I try not to over mix it, and you can see you get that separation. Kind of already looks like the ocean. The other thing is, I don't know if I mixed enough. I think we're right on the dot, but we'll see. We will see. Alright, I think that's it. I think we're ready to go. We're at 80 degrees, 81. So I think I remember how to do this. Maybe I forgot, but we'll see. I only watched a video on it once. I think it's like this. Oh, we will soon find out. That seems like just about the perfect amount, except I forgot to times that by 2. I totally forgot to do that. So we're gonna have to do it again. But first, I gotta get this one set and ready. And it absolutely was definitely the perfect amount. So that's good. But now we can just show you how to do the swirls. After I get every last drop in there. If you do the swirls too early, they kind of settle and don't really go anywhere. As you can see, we're a little bit out of level. That's why I like the shims, because now I can adjust it and bring this side higher. You can see how that automatically moves things over. Give it a quick blast of heat. Alright, I'm probably just going to have to keep doing that for a while until it starts to set up, because I like a little bit more of a swirl in there. It's definitely, the swirls settle to the bottom if it's too wet. Although it is getting a film on top, so that window is definitely starting to close. It's a fine line. It's definitely a fine line. The air bubbles are not too much of a concern either because we're going to do a top coat and that will fill the air bubbles up. I don't know. I think we need a little bit of bubble in here. It's still a little too cold for any sort of reaction. If I could get those ones to stay in there, that would be nice. Okay, I've gone ahead and mixed up some more epoxy because I forgot to times my numbers by 2. It looks like this stuff's drying up, starting to get a little sticky. That's a good time to get the swirls, but again, last time it was by accident, so we are heating up a bit. 113. Maybe I'll put a little bit of heat on it, see what happens. We're still getting hotter, so maybe we're getting there. Still looks a little too wet. Anyway, I'm going to mix these ones up and pour them in a second while I work on this one at the same time. Multitasking. Multitasking. I think at this point I've made so many swirls that these two colors are just pretty much mixed together. Not exactly what I was going for, but a lot of the stuff was trial and error, so lots and lots of errors sometimes. Sometimes some errors. So I might have used one, maybe I did go 3 colors. One of these is a different color, I think. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they're all the same and I'm wrong, but who knows. This one looks the same for sure. this point, I haven't been checking the clock, but I'm at least a half hour into it, so this other one's got to start setting up pretty soon. And when it does, it goes quick, in my experience. So I should probably get these guys poured sooner rather than later. That stuff in the cup is definitely starting to get sticky. Beautiful. Like the meeting of two oceans. Two oceans of blue glue. I think I'm going to let that one sit for a little bit before I do anything to it. Yeah, we're getting hotter. 120 degrees. At some point it just gets going, and yeah. So I don't think I'm going to put any more heat on it because I don't want it to get too hot. The hottest I've seen it get is about 180, 185, which in my opinion is too hot. But I'm not sure. Definitely starting to get a little thicker now. I like that one. So at this point you want to babysit it. You don't want to walk away. You do not want to take the dog for a walk. You don't want to go do laundry. You don't want to go do the dishes. If you go anywhere, you want to make sure you come back rather quickly, because if things went south, you would probably want to be home for that. I like those. That looks like the ocean, kinda. That's what I was looking for. I guess they both could be the ocean in different spots. basically you just got to keep doing that until it starts to set up. Getting hot. Getting hot. Where will it stop? You can definitely see it starting to move a little bit like lava. Starting to smoke a little. Starting to smoke a lot. You may want to take this puppy outside. Definitely don't want to add any heat on that. Alright, 195. I think that might be too hot for my taste. I'm gonna have to go outside with this guy. I will let you know how that turns out. Usually it should just set right up right about now, but I don't know with this stuff. Well, it looks like it's getting there. Hold on. Okay. It looks like it did it. Kind of screwed it up there, but not much else I can do now. No, we're locked in. We're locked in. Probably should have left it, but hey. I think the more I mess with it, the worse it gets, right? So, like I said, it's a one-shot deal. Once it sets, it sets. It is starting to cool down already, though. That one got hot, 210. We're about to do the same thing on this side, I imagine. Did not really get a strong exothermic reaction, though. If you're sensitive to chemicals, I'd probably wear a mask while doing this. I love those swirls. Be nice if they stayed. Okay, we're on the home stretch now. This far side is starting to cool down and is pretty much set up. This other side, probably got a few more minutes to go. Usually once the cup starts thickening up that I mixed it in, once that starts getting a little gooey, this bigger piece is not far behind. So that's really when you want to nail down. That's when you want to get your swirls. That's when you want to get your swirls right. Right at that flash point. Still think we got a little ways to go on this one. I could feel the heat kicking off of this side. You know, the problem with doing this in the garage or even outside, you know, the weather in New England's not the best for this. It's got to kind of be warm enough. So I definitely got a little bit of distortion here. I was going to trim the ends anyway, but a lot of that might get filled up. Maybe I have a little bit left over I can just piece it in with now. A little bit of a repair. There you go. Look at that. the time that gets all sanded and whatever, you ain't gonna see it. Yeah, I guess it just gets sucked into the ends a lot. Maybe I should do a better job sealing it off next time. But I think it's going pretty good. So far, we're definitely cooling down. We went from about 200 degrees. We're going back down. Look, that's 200 still. It was up to 210, 220, which at what point does it catch on fire? I don't know. I'm not trying to find out either. But maybe we should do a test one day and see. See how that works. So one of my lights batteries is dying or dead. So I had to move another light. That's why it looks a little slightly different. But this should get us through the rest of the shot. $97, still not at that point. I think right around 110, 115, that's where the swirls really start to stick. Look at how much that shrank. You probably can't see it, but it did sink down quite a bit. I don't know if you can see that, but technically I might have been holding the gun too close. I think I was getting a false reading, actually. Yeah, you're supposed to be at least 2 feet away, so. Might have been a little cooler than I thought. I was just holding it down to show you guys, but really it has to be further away. Also, if you're thinking about it and you haven't done so yet, please like and subscribe. I'm going to be doing a lot more of these, and the more people that watch them, I think the better, because who doesn't want to learn how to do this stuff? And I messed myself up last time. I went in to fix that last swirl. That swirl looks pretty good though. When it's done, I'll get a better shot. It'll look much nicer. You'll see. I could get enough heat on it to set up on this pattern, that would be awesome. It's starting to get sticky. Although I keep saying that and it actually hasn't happened yet, so. Not yet. Oof. That made a mess. I like that pattern a lot. Maybe I'll just keep that. And hope it dries that way. I might have whacked it out of level a little bit. A lot of it. So yeah, like I said, it requires a lot of babysitting. I could imagine doing a large river table would be this times a lot larger. But we'll get there. We'll do a river table at some point. I actually have an old round table that someone gave me. Oh, I gotta stop doing that. I'm gonna run out. You just want to keep doing that until it sticks at some point. It looks like it's moving around, ready to go, but we're at 135 degrees right now. I think we need more heat. starting to smoke. No smoking. Well, this brand was advertised as a no smoking brand. I think they lied. Not so much swirls, more like waves at this point. Yeah, it's smoking pretty good now. I would say it's probably ready to set up. Smoking like a barbecue on 4th of July. Just as a reminder, I do have a fire extinguisher right behind me in case things go from bad to ugly. Definitely getting sticky, hot and sticky. I do not like the smell of this stuff. Probably should wear a respirator if you're going to be breathing in this smoke. But I'm thinking that's it. Thinking I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to leave it alone. Until I mess with it again. But it's looking like it's setting up. How many times have I said that in this video? Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay, I promise I'll stop now. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. One, 7, 8. Yeah, it's looking like it's bubbling up, setting. I don't think I'm gonna touch it other than. Yeah, I'm not touching it now. Just a little bit of heat. Yeah, those bubbles aren't moving either. There's a lot of bubbles in there. I don't know, maybe I might have to touch it. Let's see what happens. I don't even know. No. Yeah, no. That's it. It's done. Oh, we just knocked something off the table. So that's it. It's setting up right now. I actually really do like that last swirl that I messed with. I think this side came out much better, minus the bubbles. A lot of bubbles. Maybe this one won't get as hot. Maybe it's got some ways to go. The other one got up to 210. Although I was holding it way closer, so yeah, okay, that makes sense. You gotta hold the heat gun a couple feet away to get an accurate reading. So realistically we're at about 190. Alright, well thanks for checking out the video. This is going to set up and then cool off, and then in the next cut we will unbox it, so to speak. But for right now, I think that's it. I'm just going to let this one cool off and go grab something to eat. So thanks for checking it out if you've stayed this long. I appreciate it. We are back. It's been just about 24 hours that this thing has been sitting in the mold. It's nice and hard and set up properly, and we're getting ready to unbox it. Here's a couple of the old containers where I mixed the stuff up. You can see everything's set up nice and good. I like to keep the old containers if I have any left over to make sure the stuff's set up good. And also you can reuse these. They're pretty easy to clean out. If you leave a stick in here or something, usually you can just pull out all the epoxy in one piece, pretty much like that. Sometimes this one I didn't leave a stick in. It might be a little harder to clean. Same with this one, but it is what it is. That one I could clean up and reuse again fairly easily. So let's see how this puppy comes out of the mold. Hopefully it just pops right out. I mean, that's the plan. We'll see how it goes. I do have a screw gun here with me to disassemble it if I need to. That got stuck on there pretty good, but we're going to sand it and clean it up anyway. I guess that answers the question on how this stuff sticks to PVC. Pretty much stuck pretty good on there. Don't need these shims anymore, but I will save these and reuse them somewhere else. Stubborn like a mule. Maybe I should take the screws off of the bottom and that'll help, huh? That'll probably help me out. I think this might have been my problem. Now let's take it apart and pop it out. It should pop right out now. There we go. That's a little easier. Jeez. That's what the tape's for. And voila. Well, all this is going to get sanded. I do not have a planer, so we're not going to be planing this. We're just going to be doing it all with a sander. Maybe at some point I'll get a planer, but we'll fill that with some clear. Clean the rest of the caulking off. like the way the swirls came out. They did come out good. By the time we sand it and clean it all up, it's going to look pretty good. We'll sand the edges, round them over. It's a pretty solid hunk of wood right there. Alright, well that's it for this video. If you like this one, stick around for the next one. The next one's going to be the final video of this series. We'll be sanding it and putting the hardware on and finishing it off to look somewhat like this one. Not exactly, but I like to use this one as an example. This one I think I'm going to sand up to 1000 grit and just try to go for a really shiny finish. I want to do a flood coat and then sand a shiny finish into it so that it's 100% watertight, except for realistically where the holes are for the handles. Here's one last look at the board all demolded before I move on to the next and my most favorite step of sanding. That's sarcasm, by the way. Again, we're going to do a lot of sanding, but I'm pretty happy with how this came out, all in all, given the problems. That little area there, once it's sanded, will be pretty perfect in my opinion. Really happy with how the swirls came out. I actually like the 3 different colors. It sort of just progresses as it goes a little bit. And the only thing I would think I would have done differently is maybe clamp it down a little better or seal it here. I did lose a little too much epoxy along the bottom. But all in all, I call it a success. So thanks for tuning in, and stick around for the next one, and we'll see how to finish this one off. Thanks.